The major thing is the pace and acceleration of change that we've seen. It removed barriers that were both perceived and real in the technology and being adopted through the organisations and by customers. And also it challenged really those historical infrastructures that we've seen that seem difficult to shift or to switch the technology or get buy-in for the technology to be used. I also think what it meant for customers is that we've seen that generational change as well, so that people had to, they were either forced to or they had to adopt technology for customers as well.
Customer service is just becoming more and more important because people want to see and feel people still, but they don't necessarily want to go into a branch to see them. They want the ultimate convenience that's always there through an app or through a web.
Customers are asking everything to be much more seamless and faster and cheaper. And also customers, as they are not going to bank branches anymore that much, the customers are expecting banks to be fully digital and live on mobile phones.
It's not really a prerequisite for their bank to be accessible physically. And the easier a bank makes their users to get access to in a digital way, the better it was.
Two important kind of vectors that come to my mind is one, instantaneous real time, and two, digital experiences. So when we kind of think of how do we go about addressing both of these, for us, I think latching onto newer technologies like conversational banking, using superior security tools to kind of enable instant identification and authentication kind of come into fore.
Consumers are becoming much more impatient and they don't accept the pandemic now as a reason for poor service provision, nor do they like the push sometimes into adopting digital as their service solution. So I think that consumer expectations have definitely shifted, and there's definitely a higher degree that banks come up with smarter solutions to support customers.
Consumers are just looking for a personal service. They've been through a tough time, in particular over the last 18, 24 months in different ways, not just with the virus, but in terms of people who have been unfortunately losing jobs and everything else. So they're looking for empathy. They're looking for people who understand them, banks who understand them, and therefore they're looking for a service that matches that in terms of actually that puts them first.
The answer is a resounding no. And the question really is, how do we kind of go about doing far more in terms of enabling our kind of consumers to go about doing their business lives, their personal lives, without having to spend too much of conscious thought to their bank relationships.
The banking landscape largely hasn't changed enough over the last probably 50, 100 years. It's starting to change. Challenger banks and neobanks, they're making differences. But there's a lot more to go.
Customers now are increasingly online. They may have, as a result of COVID, they may actually have picked up various multiple jobs. And traditional banking maybe perhaps has not been able to service these new behaviors. And I think it's incredibly interesting and important that as a result of digital revolution and banking revolution, and also thanks to COVID in many ways, that has really boosted the way financial services have developed. And also this has increased the competitiveness and brings a lot of new options on the table for customers.
I think that we really have to look at how do we transform into sustainable organisations who look at the wider stakeholder through a wider stakeholder lens that goes far beyond the previous shareholder business models. So I think we have to look at how can you align organisational culture and adapt and align that to financial sustainability.
I think the whole industry is going through a transition. We're in the midst of it, right? With lots of those neobanks, challenger banks coming up over the last couple of years. Is the entire landscape fit for purpose? No, certainly not. We'll see some kind of shakeout, both on the side of traditional banks as well as on the side of neobanks. So not all of us are going to survive.
Absolutely. Personalization and automation is a must. But the question is, what is the fastest path to that state of existence?
Striking the balance between customization, individualization, and automation is going to be one of the main challenges of banks moving forward. Bank is inherently built on trust, which was, I think, easier to establish as long as you had a physical contact point. These contact points are more or less gone. So the challenge for each of us is, how do we gain and build this trust in a digital space?
The future of banking is based on automated and personalised approach, but we have to get the balance right in that. Design always needs to be human-centric and be based on positive customer outcomes.
Automation doesn't necessarily eliminate personalization. When we look at, for example, user onboarding, KYC requirements, or access to credit, unless you apply an automated and personalized approach, I think many people will be excluded from low-cost credit, for example. So I think personalization and a deep understanding of customers' unique circumstances is an absolute key here.
People want convenience, so they want it to be, and they want it to be personalized. So then they want to be able to go and use it in a way that means something to them. However, there are times when people want to talk to people, and you need to offer both. But you need to offer enough personalization and enough self-service to enable a customer just to look after themselves and to only contact you when they want to contact you.
I think what's really exciting these days is the breadth of new models coming up and the challenge that is posed to all the traditional players. So the industry is going through a massive change. We'll see new models, new players, new opportunities, and I think this is what's really exciting in the industry these days.
How these game-changing approaches and new technologies enable access to financial services, not only access to banking as such, but also access to credit and enabling many more people to access low-cost credit, and also the personalization it provides.
Through an ethical and responsible banking lens, I really do believe that banking and technology together could help support banking's original purpose, which is that greater societal purpose, and actually help to save the world at this moment in time.